In mixed reality, your body is the input. You're no longer moving even with an analog stick. You're legit running around the space. And this level of confidence that you have when you can see your space, it actually makes the game more immersive. So for combat, like you're swinging, you're running from one side of the room, swinging into an enemy. And that really resonated with our vision. So we did it.
Good morning, everyone, to I believe this is our 7th session of the Heart and Capital Frontier Forum, where we dive into futuristic subjects of where trends are going, whether that is in something as advanced as, brain-computer interfaces, all the way to how the social layer of our society is evolving, whether that's in gaming, virtual reality, and so forth. And today we have the pleasure of having not just one, like the last 2 sessions, but 3 of our founders joining us live to dive deep into one sector that have been spending perhaps more time in than most other sectors, which is the world of virtual reality gaming. We've become quite well known in this industry, where we've backed perhaps half a dozen startups, just in the VR gaming space, but even a dozen startups in VR in general, from the designing to the video capture to the analytics. But one thing I'm really proud of is being able to find and identify talent really, really early on, a lot of times before they launch their really big breakout titles. And today you won't hear from me, but you actually hear from the founders of how they built some of the top 20 VR games in the world right now, ranking everywhere from number 11, number 13, number 18 in the most reviewed games. So we're talking really up there along the names of, a Beat Saber and so forth that you might have heard of before. And how they are finding a way to attract the next generation of players. Because this is something we talked about, I think, in the 2nd or 3rd session of our Frontier Forum, where I said that gaming is becoming the new social media. For Generation Alpha, the kids under ages call it 15 and below, right? They are no longer connecting on Instagram. They're no longer connecting even on Snapchat, perhaps just now, or definitely not Facebook, but instead they're connecting on platforms like a Roblox, a Fortnite, a Gorilla Tag, or the up-and-coming titles that we've been backing, like a Digigods, like a Battlegrounds, like a Veil. And so before we get started, as always, quick disclaimer, anything in this presentation is not financial advice. It's actually pretty hard for this to be financial advice because you can't just easily invest in VR studios, but always, of course, do your own research as it goes. And make sure if you ever want to catch a replay, maybe you want to learn more about digital fashion, brain-computer interfaces, or the future of gaming, we have those recordings up live already today on YouTube. And in case you come in late or leave early, you will also find this recording up in maybe 24 hours. Today I got with me 3 founders, and you probably already see the faces on the sides. One is Jonathan Ovadia, the founder of AEXLAB, which AEXLAB is the creator behind Veil VR. Now, perhaps, depending on what you're looking at, reviews and so forth, the #1 first-person shooter in all of VR. And, they're really going for it all. What started initially as, team deathmatch and a few simple modes is now expanding to most modes, going into extraction, going into battle royale, and so forth, and adding a social layer to it where kids can mine and more. But I don't want to steal the thunder, but essentially he's building an entire ecosystem of first-person shooter games in his world. David is the founder of Squido Studio, one of the 2 co-founders. In fact, Jonathan also is co-founder Albert. David is one of the 2 co-founders of Squido Studio, where they're essentially taking UGC to virtual reality. How can we allow kids to build their own mini games? How can we create these experiences where sometimes a game, when I demoed it, lasts maybe only 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It's a lot of very quick paced things, like whether you're racing down, whether you're doing racing, whether you're doing an escape room, whether you're doing, a team deathmatch, all kinds of fun small modes, which is a little bit of reminiscent of, Roblox, with the ideas like how can we make VR very social and get kids to engage and even ideally build their own maps. Almir is the founder, one of the co-founders of Sinn Studio, with Alec also in the house as a listener today. Sinn Studio, we first backed 2 years ago when they were building one of the up-and-coming sword fighting games in VR, where we said, look, there's a lot of competitors in first-person shooters. You've got AEXLAB, and then a lot of other people I won't name because AEXLAB is here. And then you had, a very small market in combat, but combat is just so interesting when you think about virtual reality, because while with a gun, there's a lot of gunplay that you can do with aiming. Sword really takes to an extra level where there's a lot of art and craft in how you fight, and it's something that you can't easily replicate on desktop, because when you're on desktop, fighting melee is a little strange. As somebody growing up on RPGs, Skyrim, Gothic, and so forth, it's really just hitting a button like right slash, left slash, and that's pretty much it. And so with Sinn, they try to bring it to the next level of making real arena combat in VR. Since then, they've launched one of the fastest growing social VR titles called Battlegrounds, where essentially you took what was prior really an arena style, very serious kind of gameplay towards more, how do we make it social? How do we scale it? How do we get, hundreds of thousands of kids to like do this almost like in a playground, fighting each other, being creative, being fun, and so forth. And all three companies have been growing rapidly. And if you go to VRDB today, you'll find their titles in the top 20 most rated games of all time, all three of them. So without further ado, before I take any more time, I will hand it over to our founders. I think we're starting with David. Then we'll hand it off to Jonathan and then to Almir, where they'll give you a look behind the scenes of how they're leveraging social VR, like how they're leveraging VR gaming with using tools like making it social, making it free to play, and so forth, and how that is becoming the next generation of gaming and social media. So let me unshare and give it over to David.
Thank you, Felix. Hi all, I'm David. I'm the CEO of Squido. I'll just share my screen. There you go, should be working. It works? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I'm David, the CEO of Squido. So Squido, we are funded in 2019. We started, by the way, I have an educational background. My first startup was in EdTech. So we started by making educational games and mobile games. And when VR came along, it was like, this is the way, this is the future. I want to be there with my co-founder. So we started Squido for that. We're in Montreal, Canada. We're now a team of 35. Only focus on XR. So yes, VR headsets, but hopefully the glasses soon. So I have my Ray-Ban right now. Soon they will have screens. So I think this is the future of spatial computing that everyone will use in a couple of years. We have a gameplay first approach. We'll always want to make games that are fun, even when they are blocky and don't look good at all. So we play this all the time. And we raised 3 mil last year with Artman and others. So our first game was No More Rainbows. Is the first entry in VR. It's a platformer. It's basically Mario in VR, but you play as Bowser. It was not a free-to-play game. It was a $19.99 game with a single-player campaign and a multiplayer mode. And this is where we really learned that like the killer app to VR is social, not single-player games, because our multiplayer modes became the most popular and where all players were having fun together. So we launched in 2023, and it's the best platformer out there if you want to play a game like that. So our second game, we learned from No More Rainbows. So we went all in with social and UGC. So like Felix described it, it's basically Roblox meets a Gorilla Tag. It's a mini game maker. You can make any types of game, battle, role play, social, casual, racing, and you can switch with your friends really quickly between different game modes, edit the maps while you're playing. So really a sandbox, physics-based sandbox with UGC for XR. So we launched last December, and we already have a 26,000 rating, and the game is growing, updating it every 2 weeks. So the insights, what we learned in VR, roughly Meta with the Quest headset has 25%, if not more, of the VR market. And the key audience, what we really learned in the past years is what is the medium for? When VR launched, we thought it was all about replaying the big PlayStation game. I would say in VR, like playing God of War and being Kratos in VR. But in the end, this is not what people do. Adults are tired. They don't necessarily want to play single player, staying up in their room. And the key audience is really the kids, the 10 to 15 years old. They see VR not as a game, not as a game console. It's a place. So they put their headset and they go meet their friend in the location. So when I was younger, I was chilling with my friends at the backyard of a grocery store or in the basement of my friends, or just chilling on MSN. But nowadays, well, like Felix said, they just hang out in VR. This is a place. They want to go there and socialize. So that's the key market of VR. This is what we do in VR. So it's truly the vision of the metaverse, if I can use this term. So social is the killer app. Teens have more retention than any other demographic. They're looking for a social playground, and informal and I would say emergent gameplay is the norm. So I meet my friend, we chill together, and it happens that we can play stuff in the background to keep us entertained, but I'm firstly there to meet my friend. So this is what's happening. And probably heard of the most popular VR game. If you don't know, it's Gorilla Tag. Still Gorilla Tag after 4 years. So it's a free-to-play game where you play tag, and you can just chill around and play tag. Play tag in the background. Most people don't even play tag. They already made 100 million in revenues, even more than that, just selling ads. And they still rack 1 million daily players, 3 million monthly players. So hopefully we'll beat them in the next couple of months. That's the target. So the vision with DigiGods is really Gorilla Tag meets Roblox. So the hangout and social space of Gorilla Tag mixed with the user-generated content of Roblox for next-gen XR. So we have drag and drop UGC. You can, with your friends, drag and drop objects. We have a library of objects. You can build bridge, castle, whatever, racetracks, battlefields. And then you can go into your battlefields at any time, play with your friends. It's all physics-based. You can touch other players, grab other players, throw them, really crazy chaos mayhem. And we also wanted to be future-proof. So it's full XR support. You can play with hand tracking, you can play pass-through, and hopefully, if the processing power of the future glasses permit it, it will be playable on future glasses. So that's it for DigiGods. Our recipe, I would say, for the way we work and the recipe for our success is really social gameplay focus. So again, gameplays in the background needs to be fun, but is it the place where you can meet with your friends and just chill with them? This is really, really important. And it's really important for retention. Sometimes we didn't update too much focus, let's say, on war or battle, and sometimes it changed the way you meet your friend, because if you just always punch them in the face, maybe it's less good for retention. So we need calm playgrounds as well as battle ones. Less UI as possible. Let's try to physicalize everything. You're in VR, you are immersed, you want to touch things, you don't want to play on menus and stuff. So physicalize everything is really important in the game. We do weekly builds. We play with the players like daily. This is really important to build the right product. And we also update the games every 2 weeks. So all the top VR games, even Gorilla Tag or Animal Company right now, updating fast, always keep the game fresh, people returning, and increase playtime, of course. So that's very important. It's also important for selling items in the free-to-play. Involving a community and the creative process. So we have a Discord with 30,000 players. We talk to them every day. We ensure to use their ideas and have them test the game as well. They are also part of our own community, our own company Discord. A lot of kids are in our meeting in the Discord where we work. And what's really important, nowadays you cannot make a game without social media, having content creators posting videos all the time. So empowering creators with a creator program, badge, reward systems, so that they're enticed to share videos about the game and grow in that community. But also maps. About 30% of all maps played in DigiGods, 30% are user generated. So it's not our official one, and that number is increasing steadily every month. And of course, finally, I'm a former math teacher. Tracking KPIs is the key. So these are just examples like playtimes and gross revenues. Every time we put our mind on a KPI and we track the KPI, it focuses the team on optimizing it. So I think it's just a basic business rules, but like what you can track, you can improve. So yeah, so that's what we do. And recently we started to explore also a deeper relationship with kids. So we started developing free-to-play social games, but in a shorter period of time, in parallel to DigiGods, while connecting these games to DigiGods as well through portals. But we developed these games with kids in our team. So we launched Momentum. Momentum is a game developed with a 13-year-old guy, really talented one. We have developers working with him, and this game is doubling in users every month right now. So it's I think it's on a great growth trajectory. So I think again, collaborating with these kids. And having them doing UGC with our team is a great way to do it. And tomorrow we're launching Grand Theft Animal, which is in the same kind of a vision. So we ship this game in 6 weeks, and we develop it with the community. So it's like a funny social version of Schedule 1 and GTA in VR. So hopefully it will be a great success too. So that's it for me in 10 minutes. So if you want to reach out, here's my email. Pleasure.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I think one of the things that really stands out here is people might look at the outside and hear running a game studio, or even more so maybe a VR game studio. It feels very ethereal and abstract, and like, you're building something fun and cute, but really this is one like a startup, right? Whether we're talking about like the quantitative look at how many minutes are our users playing this game? How many minutes? How many minutes a day are our users playing this? Or also like how many dollars or cents are we collecting per user per month, right? Like it really becomes a pure business play at that point. Of course, with the art and the love, right? But in order to succeed, I think running a game studio, these kind of like behaviors and I guess having that North Star is just as important. Equally, being able to churn out games, in 48 weeks. I know with the Q&As later, but maybe just to ask one question. How were you able to essentially set up your infrastructure and your processes to a place that you can even get to launching a game like a VR Grand Theft Auto in 48 weeks?
I think it's part of what's make it. Every platform has their own codes, and I would say, and in VR, like a Roblox game look like a Roblox game, a mobile game looks like a mobile game. So I think one advantage in VR is that when you look at the most successful VR games, they look like PS1 graphics, if I may say, like all social games. So that's the code of VR, and it's a strength. So because if you want to ship a game in 4 to 6 weeks, don't overthink, like don't overdevelop, like just ship, and that's one of the key that was useful to shipping a game in 4 to 8 weeks. The other thing is also shipping builds every day and playing with players every day. We know when the game is good enough, fun enough with all the KPIs that it's ready to be shipped, and then be able to update it, be confident that we can update every 2 weeks to keep it alive and grow the game into something great. So that's the recipe. I think it's easy to go from idea to shipping quite fast.
Incredible. I'm ready. Well, we got Grand Theft Auto in VR with monkeys before GTA 6, so the list keeps getting longer. Awesome. Appreciate you giving us a talk. Would love to have you stick around for the end of the Q&A session. And with that, Jonathan.
Hi, everyone. How are you? Thank you for having us today, Felix.
Of course.
Let me share my screen. Awesome. So I'm Jonathan. I'm a co-founder and CEO of AEXLAB. We make this game right here called Veil VR, which is a virtual reality multiplayer first-person shooter. A lot of people would compare us to something similar to Call of Duty in VR with a Halo aesthetic. But what's really cool about being in VR is that you can actually do things that you can't do in traditional flat screen. And since virtual reality tends to skew to the younger generation, we have to change and pivot many times on the MetaQuest platform, the business model itself. So this is it's funny, but looking at our monthly active user chart, there's a story behind every single swing here, and that's really the main thing I'm here to share. So we launched early access November of 2022 on Steam VR, and it wasn't until February 2024 that we actually launched on Quest. So about a year and 6 months later, but you don't really see a major jump just from going from Steam to Quest, as many people believe. You actually see a major jump about 6 months later on the Quest market, and then our biggest jump yet 6 months after that. So this here is kind of our internal blueprint on how we plan on building out the Veil ecosystem. We obviously started with the game engine, and we focused on what our team knows best, which is, multiplayer PvP. At the time, when we first started around 2017, most of the people that were inside of virtual reality were on PC VR. The entry was about $2,000, $3,000 and a lot of technical hurdles. So the demographic tends to skew a little bit older, and we were focused on this core player versus player market. So the next step we took after that was going into the hardcore competitive market with esports. And the reason why we decided to go into that is because esport players tend to spend more than other players, and they tend to play one game for many, many, many years. Some players play 10, 15, 20 years. So we wanted to focus on the core player versus player market and then go into the hardcore esports market. What ended up happening is MetaQuest kind of took over, and we realized that the demographic skewed younger. Something that you could do in VR that no other platform could offer is social. And then we decided to go the total opposite way from hardcore to social casual. Now, where we're at with social casual is we're actually going to go into the hardcore market. The reason why is there's a hardcore market in virtual reality that from our current data, a player might be worth 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to $20 per month, where a player in the social free-to-play market might be worth $1 per month. So we already have the entire infrastructure from our game engine to tackle the hardcore market. And then after we get into the hardcore market, we want to go back down into the casual risk-taker market, which is Battle Royale. And then there is a market that we haven't touched, but we do have a lot of data that points to something that people are going to enjoy, which is the single-player market. And what's funny is we kind of actually approached this the wrong way. We went from the hardest thing to build going all the way into the easiest thing to build, but the entire market changed under us. So the core PvP market, for people that don't know, is your traditional 5v5 multiplayer matches. It's very casual, capture the flag, search and destroy, bomb defusal, team deathmatch, etc. VR esports, it's what you'd imagine. It's esports with VR headsets, a lot more physicality and very entertaining to watch. So this is kind of a really good insight. So when we launched our game, this was January 2024, we launched to the hardcore market, and we were getting anywhere from 60 to 80% retention on our core demographics. When we did the pivot to go social, we dropped dramatically, anywhere from like the 25 to like 35% range, which was very poor, because it's not just enough to go free to play. You have to design the game to be retentive for free to play users. When a user spends money, they're willing to go through hurdles such as figuring out how things work, and talking to other people, going off platform on YouTube, Google, Reddit to see how everything works. When something's free, they kind of just jump in, and if it doesn't immediately stick with them, they kind of tend to just drop off. So it took us about 6 months in the social free to play to finally understand how do we target free to play users and keep them retentive. And you can see here around November that we actually were able to get to a nice sweet spot. We'll never expect to get to the hardcore market, but how do you get scale and still stay within a nice retention area? So how did we do it? Social grinding, something that kids can do that requires no effort and can be done in the background while hanging out with your friends. So we introduced around November of last year, that was ironically our biggest hit to date, something called supply capsules. Essentially, it's a box that you can acquire within the game, open it, and there's right now about 600 different potentials. So think of Pokemon cards. You get a pack of cards, you don't know what's in it, it's very exciting, and you can just grind in the game to open these things up. How did we do it? We did it with mining. So there's a method right now in the game where you can go in and just run around with your friends mining. And every time that you mine, you might get 10, 20, 50, or 100 points of ore. And then you can buy these supply capsules anywhere from 3,000 to 50,000. So a lot of kids will spend 5, 10, 20 hours a week just mining, trying to get this thing. But the way that we did it is, if you're an older player that wants the fun of these supply capsules, but you don't want to spend hours mining, you can pay for convenience. So we really hit two birds with one stone here, where we allowed younger kids to come and play with their friends, grinding for these cool cosmetics. And if you're an adult or you have money to spend, you can just pay for convenience. Because the challenge that we had as a multiplayer shooter is, how do you monetize something without giving an unfair advantage? Because the second you give an unfair advantage for money, you might have one really solid month and then you will lose your entire player base. So we sold the pickaxe and we sold a mining hat. And if you wear both of these items in the game, you get 2 times the yield boost. So paying for convenience. We created something in game called the Veil Alliance. And if you pay for this, it's anywhere from $10 to $40 a month. It's a subscription. And every month you get supply capsules, different skins, in-game currencies. And so far, this has been a huge revenue driver for us. We just launched it in March. We're hitting about the 3-4 month mark. And this right now is about 1/3 of our studio's revenue, paying for the convenience of being part of the Veil Alliance. So going from social to hardcore, I mentioned earlier, we started with the very hardcore market. We did a full 180 going into social, and we realized a very interesting insight. A lot of people that were coming to the game just to socialize or go mining with their friends, play mini golf, basketball, etc., they weren't making the jump to playing into the multiplayer shooter. So what we ended up doing is we created a new game mode that is called Training Grounds. It's really tiny maps that players automatically spawn with weapons, and you can see almost every player from any spawn point. So what this does is it makes the player just focus on training up their aim and getting comfortable with engaging other players and not having to, wander around and get shot from different angles, and really knowing where you are in a big map in virtual reality. It's a very unique challenge, because traditional games, you click the M button or the start button and you have a huge map and you immediately know where you're supposed to go. But in virtual reality, not knowing where you're supposed to go stresses out a lot of players. And the second we introduced these small maps, we saw a huge jump from the social players dipping their feet into the training grounds and then upgrading to the Veiled Combat. So this is an idea of like a small map. It's called Pool. You spawn on each side, and like within 10 seconds, you're from one side to the other. This is our gym. So any side that you spawn, you see the other players. And this has been an amazing thing for players to feel comfortable getting into the actual game itself. So ever since we went free to play and kind of optimized the social and the training grounds, and we've created this funnel that starts social training grounds and then goes into core PvP and then now has the hardcore with the esports, we've created this funnel that allows players to really enjoy their time and kind of take it from like elementary school to middle school to high school to college. We've seen our user engagement really explode. Right now, we're the #1 rated game by actual rating count and rating score, and we've hit number 11 out of over 10,000 games. And I want to give a nice shout out to Battlegrounds here, coming in at number 13. It's a little race between Veil and Battlegrounds. And then here's some other insights, because the way that the Meta platform works, in my opinion, is it's similar to Netflix or any of these streaming services. Netflix's goal is to show you content that you're going to love so that you don't hop off their platform. It's the same thing for Meta. They want to recommend games that they know people are going to love so that they have a good taste in their mouth in VR and spend more. So something really interesting up here on the top chart, this is our reach, how many people see our game on the store every single day. And then down here is how many people actually see the game and then play the game. So you can see that we went free to play November of 2024, and we've had consistent reach throughout our career. But once we went free to play, our actual conversion rate 100x. I mean, we've consistently been getting anywhere from like 3,000 to 10,000 new players a day because we went free to play, and we have, in my opinion, a solid game. So I do believe that you can be successful with a paid game, but if you have a free to play game and design it properly, you have at least a 10x greater advantage on acquiring new users. And I do believe that that was one of the reasons why we were successful. At the same time, we were not the first shooter game. So when you're the second or third game in a genre, you kind of have to have something very unique or give it for free and be better quality. And when we launched, we do believe we had a better product, but we really couldn't convince players to switch over. Once we were free, they were able to try it, and then most of them did stick around. And that is our journey from going paid to free in about 2 years. And we're very grateful that the community has kind of stuck through everything. And now everything we do moving forward is free to play and thinking about how to get users addicted within the first 20 minutes.
Amazing. Again, similar feedback as with David, very data driven, which is always interesting to see behind the scenes. One question that I have before we go over to Almir, is it seems like you've had a lot of micro and macro decisions along the way that you did not know the outcome of before you made them. Like whether it's going from esports to casual players, whether it's going paid to free. There was initially going from Steam to standalone. I mean, there's a lot of like bigger decisions you have to make, and also small ones. Where how do you gauge when it's the right decision to make, and have there also been times when you rolled back a decision where you made a pivot and realized, whoa, it didn't stick. It actually made our numbers worse. Let's go back to what it was previously.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. What we've decided is we don't actually know what users want but we do know that the first-person shooter genre is something that is massive. It's been around for as long as I can remember. So our thesis internally and kind of what we do is we always add to the game. We never take away from the game. So if we think, oh, we have to add something to tackle a new demographic, we'll go and add it. And if it does receive traction, we'll put development resources behind it to polish it up. If it doesn't receive traction, we just kind of leave it as is and then go on to the next thing. So similar to how, you know, these other studios are shipping a game every couple months, every game they ship, they're tackling a different thesis and they're all kind of separated. Our thesis is let's just keep stacking on top of our game. There's some pros and cons. The pros is we keep all the players on one platform, one game. The con is there's a lot of technical work that needs to be done to be able to maintain all these systems within one game. So there's pros and cons. We're taking the mega app approach, and it requires a lot of technical work, but hopefully it will pay off.
Nice. And as AJ, the founder of Lyft, told me yesterday, you guys have one of the cleanest codes. You know, when there's a lot of spaghetti code out there, you guys have the most.
You have to have extremely clean modular code base if you want to do something as crazy as this. If not, you just can't. You get stuck at some point.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, appreciate you sharing all this with us. We'll love for you to still till the end. JP will take over after with some Q&A. And so with that, we'll love to pass the microphone over to Almir.
So Felix gave a pretty well-rounded intro when we started off, so thank you for that. And Jonathan and David did a really deep dive on what really works in this space. So I'm going to do my best to contribute as much as possible. I'm Almir. I am the co-founder and COO of Sinn Studio. We founded in 2017, and that was the VR is dead era. So that took a lot of conviction. Really happy that we had it because, you know, that choice is bearing a lot of fruit right now. We've developed a lot of games across different technical verticals. We've developed in virtual reality and mixed reality, spanning across premium and free to play. And thankfully, we've been successful in all of those. And I'll talk a little bit our portfolio and our vision deeper into this presentation to give context of what that means. Right now, we're about a team of 30. And the team is split. It's split between content and technology. We have this thesis internally that experiences that incentivize body input tend to be the most immersive, generally making them the most commercially viable. So we put a decent amount of effort internally to really build out a strong technical foundation on the input layer, because we feel like that's going to be our long-term moat for the studio going on, as well as, you know, fresh IP that comes on top of this. We're calling it an engine internally as well. So because we've developed this general technical foundation, it really has helped us pivot from whatever technology we need to work on or whatever business model is, you know, going to get us the scale that we need. And the interesting thing was that we saw free-to-play really taking off last year. And it was a really strong validation point for us, because I think that free-to-play can only thrive once an ecosystem is large enough. And that was super convincing to us, because typically in free-to-play, you amass a large amount of users, but you have a smaller subset of paying users. But if the market is too small, it's not enough to extract enough value to build a company on top of. Thankfully, VR is at that place right now. And then when we look at the most popular games right now on the Meta Quest store, you really see this emergence of free-to-play, and it's linked with social. And when we thought about why that's so valuable internally, it's just like natural value of being able to communicate with more than just your voice. XR offers this like richer player expression where you're like throwing stuff with your hands, you're pointing at stuff, and you're not locked into these rigid animations that this game has preset for you that they've determined that are valuable and potentially unintuitive. So that social connection is so much deeper. And because you're also embodying this player, you commit to this persona that you have in the virtual space much more than, hey, I'm controlling this character on screen with this set of inputs. And I have to essentially make myself believe that I am that. In VR, you really are that. And I think that lends a lot better to the monetization strategies that are currently active in any free-to-play game, which is like cosmetics, consumables, and stuff like that. You physically being able to grab a consumable, attach it to you, or you being physically being able to grab a weapon, use it, I think connects with the players more and naturally increases the value of these cosmetics in game. When we thought about free to play, it wasn't that, free to play was something that we were necessarily excited for a long time or waiting for that moment. It was just a natural progression for getting users at scale. And I'll talk about our tech stack later on in the portfolio, but we knew that a lot of the foundational work we had already done, it was just, okay, learning how do you now, through art and design, layer that to create a really successful game. And given that our focus has been in combat, it only made sense to develop a combat social game where players could virtually kill each other amongst many other activities. So we did just that. And the convergence of that was Battlegrounds. And Battlegrounds really puts all the work that we've been doing for the last couple of years building out this tech stack, but also all of the things that really work in social VR. So essentially in Battlegrounds, you are this warrior living in this kingdom that's ever expanding, and you have to battle, you have to mine, you have to socialize to earn your place in this kingdom hierarchy. And that's really where the social activity thrives. And what we did really early on when we were testing this type of game concept was similar to Jonathan. We really took the competitive route. We're like, you're going to want to have these players build these clans, and they're going to want to duel against each other. And the thirst for blood is going to be incredibly exciting. And we got that, but we got it with a smaller subset of users. And we had to design the game moving forward in a way where it leans social, but it leans social over competitive, but there's also still a component of competitiveness within the game that the players who want that can find. So we've created systems that separate the user experience while keeping the users all in the same place. And that's done really, really, really well for us. It really allows us to capture a larger audience than we would if we were just really strong social or really strong competitive. And we're really diving deeper into how to continue to merge these two audiences together. The high level as to how the game works, players earn in-game currency in multiple ways. As I mentioned, they battle, they mine, they level up, and we reward them for every one of these actions. And the main purchase loop that we have is players will buy these gadgets, or you can refer to them as tools, that have a finite, that they have a finite use case. So for one example is like a player will buy a pickaxe, and it has, let's say, 50 amount of hits. And once they've used that pickaxe, they've earned a certain amount of currency through using that pickaxe, but they also would now have to go buy another pickaxe to continue with that type of gameplay. And what that does is it requires players to continuously engage, whether it's through play or purchase. Maybe you're a player who's just, a grinder, and you make the world feel more alive because you're always in there and you're contributing to this larger social fabric. That's great. You play, you earn your currency, you spend it on these tools, and that loop continues. But let's say you're a player who wants to get in there and just enjoy these tools. You also have the option to purchase that. And we support both of those types of game styles internally. And the community seems to switch in between both, which is really good for us from a monetization standpoint. Now, Battlegrounds is relatively new. I mean, Bale's been around for a long time, and they've done really great. DigiGods has really captured that free-to-play social crowd. I think well over a year now. We're a little bit newer. We launched into early access less than three months ago, but we're really happy with what we've been able to achieve so far. We're well over 500,000 downloads. Our average daily playtime is 42 minutes, and it's growing. It's growing really fast week over week. We're hoping that by the end of this month, we'll play around in the 50 to 52 minutes, which is really good in the free-to-play space. And right now, after only a couple of months of being out there, Battlegrounds is the 13th most rated VR game of all time on the Quest platform. And that's, comparable to titles that have been there for years and years and years, such as Beat Saber, Blade and Sorcery, and many others. So that's our free-to-play vision baked into our internal vision. And what our internal vision is, thankfully we have a portfolio of success. We are the team behind Swordsman VR, that sold well over 500,000 units. It was, I think, the third or fourth best-selling title on PlayStation VR of all time. It peaked as the second best-selling title on the Meta Quest store. We also tried our luck at mixed reality, which became really popular through the Quest 3 and the Quest 3S. We developed Guardian of Realms, which is right now, I think, one of potentially the most popular mixed reality games out there. That was a huge internal win for us, and I'll talk about that a little bit later as to why that was. And then Battlegrounds, which is now currently our focal point, like we talked about earlier. And what you see on the screen is you see a lot of content. It's like, okay, there's all these different IPs, but I think our core focus has always been this input layer. How do we build a technology that solves a lot of the toughest problems in VR, whether it's intent prediction, whether it's physics, whatever it is, that we solve that layer at such a high degree that we don't ever have to touch that again when we're putting our games together in the future. It's simply just layering the art and layering the design. And Guardian of Realms really showed how well we did that, because we were able to put such a well-performing game together within just a couple of months. And I think that's going to be a really strong moat for us moving forward, because we're able to deliver high-quality XR experiences in such a low amount of time and at low cost. And when you're iterating rapidly, as we all are, that really becomes valuable to us. And we thought it yielded a lot of internal value. But as we started having these conversations within the industry, we noticed that a lot of traditional IPs were taking interest into what we were building. And they started inquiring about potentially collaborating or using this in a way to get their IPs and take their shot at XR. And I asked them, like, why don't you just do it? Like, just do it yourself. And their perspective was like, well, there's a certain quality that exists with traditional IPs. It's a very high quality bar. And they're afraid that if they transition into XR, that it'll take too long, or they won't get it right early on, that first layer of interaction. And they think that the technology that we developed can mitigate a lot of that risk, but also we could bring their IP in to XR relatively fast, meaning that their risk is less from a financial standpoint. So we have a couple of options there. We're looking at who's going to be potentially the best fit for us, and we'll action on that hopefully in 26. But our company really is split into technology and content. And I'm hoping that in the next couple of months, we'll throw the punches with the top in the free-to-play space, but we'll also be a strong player on the technology side and enable a lot of the most well-known IPs to enter XR. So that's us. That's what we've been doing, and that's where we're hoping to go. But thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Almir. Since we are at 12:45, instead of you doing the one-on-one question, I'll just go towards all the questions. Why don't we jump right into the Q&A session? For this one, I'd like to introduce JP, who focuses on our VR investments, who works very closely and hand on hand with everybody in the room, from David to Almir to Jonathan, working on their analytics, their insights, talking to even outsiders, people that aren't in our portfolio, to see, what are the best of the best doing, what are working winning strategies, what are strategies that aren't working anymore. And so that, JP, why don't you take over here? And I see we've got a bunch of questions in the Q&A already. So maybe we start with those, giving some answers to the people that started off first, and then take from there.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you, Felix, for the nice introduction. Yeah, just quick overview. I've been working at Hartman for a while. I think I see a lot of familiar faces already in the chat, and I work very closely with a lot of VR studios, and including these three I know very well. So I think we'll just go ahead and get started with some of this Q&A. I guess we were going to start with Derek first, where he's asking, this is a question for all you guys, is are there any features or strategies from you guys that surprise you in terms of player response, good or bad? So say like an update you made that was really surprisingly positive or negative.
Maybe just one quick. We did an update where we played with motion sickness. So it's all about flipping the camera, drinking dizzy potions, and then the camera flips, and we unlock the camera that's normally fixed, and the audience, 10 to 15 years old, they love it. They love it. There's no problem. They have their VR legs. So this was surprising and fun. So it's, yeah, that's one.
Yeah, for us, when we introduced mining to the game, it was meant to be kind of a little cute joke, and we received such a positive response that we have spent a lot of resources into refactoring it and building it out into an entire game within a game. So kids yearn for the mines. I remember when the Minecraft movie trailer came out, it was memes nonstop in our Discord. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I think I echo what Jonathan said. As soon as we added mining, you had this like game within a game. But the really interesting thing was players weren't selling the mines as I thought they were. They were more so using it as like a social flex. We had this grip option, but they would put these diamonds on their wrist and pretend that it was a Rolex. And that was really, really interesting. And we're going to dig deeper on that.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes to that broader point, Almir, for what you're saying. So much of what works in free-to-play social is emergent, right? It's not things you can really predict. They sort of come in and you observe the audience, kind of like you're at a zoo and you're looking at the behavior, right? And then that influences game design decisions. So I want to move on to this next question. I'm going to start with Almir for this one. This is from Kyle, because I think you can speak really well on this from multiple projects. So maybe you can talk about how much of what you build is being influenced by meta trends, i.e., hand tracking, pass through, etc., versus building what players actually want.
That's a great question. I think it really depends. You have to consider what platforms are building. Like, I think that's where you risk mitigate. So we definitely do that, but we only do it if it aligns with our mission and we can build a lot of value for the user. Just a quick example is in mixed reality. The reason we decided to put something out within that realm was because in mixed reality, your body is the input. You're no longer moving even with an analog stick. You're legit running around the space. And this level of confidence that you have when you can see your space, it actually makes the game more immersive. So for combat, like you're swinging, you're running from one side of the room, swinging into an enemy. And that really resonated with our vision. So we did it. But something for hand tracking, we haven't necessarily explored as heavily yet because it doesn't link as strongly to our vision. But maybe that just requires more exploration. But it varies.
Got it. No, that's a great answer. David, Jonathan, do you guys have anything you want to add to that?
I'll just say that the only thing that like really influenced us, I guess, was just the free-to-play trend. Everything else, it's just all VR and focusing on what we think players want.
So, no, yeah, makes sense. Another question that I have come up a lot from a VC in VR, and this question I get is understanding how are you activating players outside of the headset? Essentially, most of the time, content is just happening inside the headset. How are you thinking about not only attraction for player acquisition, but keeping somebody inside the game or inside the lore, even when they're not in the headset?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the Discord, like for the player plays, like they live on Discord, like their friends are in Discord. Even in the headset, they open Discord, like in the they talk to
Mhm.
their friends there. So, I mean, being on Discord, having like community events all the time on Discord, like even activity happening in Discord, I think is the key. And of course, then it's looping in with the socials on mostly YouTube Shorts and TikTok. Like this is where the kids did their information. So I would say it's really to connect the game with Discord with socials and the three of us. So the three of them. So the better we can create that loop, the better you can create like incentives, like creator programs and perks, and then events in the game, and then events in Discord. Let's say we do a map creation event in the game. You post the map on Discord, you vote on Discord, and then we do a video on socials about those maps, for example. So it's really connecting the tree.
To touch on David's point, in Swordsman's case, we really perfected becoming our own content creator. We averaged about 22 million views a year on our own channels. And what we did out of there was we created additional audiences in our advertising backends of our most engaged users. So that when we had updates, we had a direct pipeline to let our users know what has been added. We haven't done that with Battlegrounds yet because we're just getting off the ground, but I think that's going to be really useful for us to make sure that everyone interested in the things that we're building is getting notified as to what is being added over time.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a common trend of what I've seen with really successful VR titles is that they're really active on socials, right? So either generating their own content or pushing users to make their own, right? And then active in Discord as well, right? Can you get someone to be in the community, right? Can they still be in the group chat when they're not in the headset? Do they get envy when other players are in the headset and they're not, right? Completely in the back end. This is a fun question from Victor. If you could ask Mark Zuckerberg, directly for one feature or change to the Meta platform, what would it be?
That's a great one.
For me, it would be the ability to pay for marketing on the actual platform itself.
That's a good one.
Yeah, like store placement. There's also a bunch of tools that don't work properly, like the UTM tracking for like links. Yeah, in the dashboard. So I mean, improve a lot of stuff that's are available on other store page. I would say that would be the ask.
Yeah, I think that's a good one, David. Just the attribution to off platform is like non-existent. You have to
Yeah, it's very
do
hard
like
to track like marketing or anything.
it's almost impossible. Like what we're doing is like we're just calculating like
Guesstimate.
incremental growth. That's it.
We're
So
guessing,
that's tough.
trying to put some logic behind every KPI movement.
Yeah.
So this is an anonymous question asking about retention in the platform, right? So unlike a lot of free-to-play ecosystems like Unreal Engine Fortnite or Roblox, a lot of these games and titles have a very fast half-life for their games. So they blow up and then they burn bright and then they fall off. Versus I think you guys have all made games that have been very retentive and have built a community. So how are you thinking about retention and keeping platforms engaged or users for months to years?
I think all three of us have a very similar approach, just shipping consistent bi-monthly updates with new content and then building upon what we already have so that players always have something to look forward to. I think all three of us said the same thing, so I feel like we're doing it right or we're all doing it wrong.
Well, I think you guys are doing it right. Go ahead. Sorry.
I know exactly right, and I would say the difference with the platform is that it's really social. So you go there to meet your friends. So it's about creating a habit where you hang out with your friends, as opposed to when you play Roblox, maybe you voice chat somewhere else. It's different. Like in VR, you are there. So maybe that's why it's also different with other platforms.
Yeah, also all
we
three of us built like a pretty similar game in the sense of it's like a game that you can go and hang out. So it's not like one and done type situation. So like inherently in the type of games we've designed, they're built to be retentive.
Yeah, but also when we add something, it has to be like same but different. And what I mean by that is like it has to be similar enough to the user that they know how to use it right away, but different enough to where they have to invest time to explore how it works. And I think
Yeah,
that's done really well for us. So like either we have a pistol, it's pretty simple, you press a button, but we also have a bow. They're pretty similar interaction models, but you have to like learn how to use both of them. And I think there's like a teaching component to the social value within our players. And that's really done well for us.
I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. So this one's from Rodolfo asking about what is the average age of your active users? What is and what was your target and what's your goal, right? Essentially, so what does your user composition look like? Did it make sense for what you were targeting? And then did you find something else out? Or did you build for this specific audience in mind?
I'll just say, I don't know about you guys, but our demographic data is non-existent. It's
No, that's
very
another
I
ask
go
for
in,
us.
play the thing, and I feel it out consistently, and I don't ask kids their age because I feel like I'm not supposed to, but I have a decent feeling of the type of person that plays VR in general.
Yeah, I agree. I would say on my end, I would say like 13 years old is the average, like 12, 13. And initially, like the first game we made, No More Rainbows, we made it for myself. Like like I wanted to play a classic platformer single player, but now I understand like that's not the market. Like the VR players are kids, like 13 years old. And I think they will also get older with the medium. So that's what interesting. Like, five years from now, these kids will be adults starting to work and will ask their boss, like, why are we working in VR? It makes no sense to not meet in VR. Plus, in 5 years, like the VR headset will look like this, hopefully. So this will be the inflection point we're all looking for.
I think for us, we have two competing audiences because we made Swordsman, which is a really successful combat game, and then there's Blade of Sorcery, which is also like done really well. The most requested feature out of both of those games is a multiplayer component. So we delivered that, but we delivered it in the realm of free to play social. So you have this slightly older audience that wants to play these games in a multiplayer way, which is what we give them, and then you have this natural free to play social audience, and we're learning how to ensure that they can live together. So ours is like really two primary audiences competing, and we're trying to make sure that we can hold on to both of them.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I think we're pushing over here on time for the end of the hour. So Felix, if you want to close us out here. You're on mute, by the way.
I said we can do one more question to give back. I see there's a question from somebody
Sure.
asking about jobs. He says the question is for the panel: what does a VR studio see in a resume portfolio in a candidate who's looking for a job or an opportunity to work in the VR games industry? Just because we got to get back to the next generation, help them get into space, we can grow as a whole. Maybe you have like one or two suggestions, ideas.
I'd say for us, if it's an artist, just your portfolio, something you've already done. If it's an engineer, something you've programmed. We don't really care about education, where you come from, anything. We just care about what you've actually done. And some of our best hires have been, I'd say 22 to 25-year-old people that just finished college and worked on a project or worked on their own game throughout college, that just shows that they understand how all these things connect with each other.
Yeah, I agree with Jonathan. Same thing. And I would say for us, we also ask all developers to pass a test. We call it the basketball test. Is can you just have a short build? You grab a ball and you throw it in a basketball net, and you would be surprised how many people fail that test. And like senior devs, a lot of senior dev fail that test because we're looking for like just game feel. And VR have different codes, so I'd say someone who is ready to commit, spend the time, and understand the medium. If you want, like, just do the baseball test, the basketball test, and add it to your portfolio. It will probably help land a job. But make sure it feels good. That's my only ask.
Yeah, I think the pretty standard response from our side is like the portfolio, depending on what you're applying for. But there's also these like two personal traits. Like, are you naturally obsessive? Does it bother you when you can't understand something? If it doesn't, we obviously would love to have those kind of people. But also, do you have a high sense of humbleness to understand that a lot of the stuff you're going to produce is actually not going to be very good, and you're going to get a lot of feedback that's going to potentially, bruise your ego a little bit. And in all of that, you're going to be able to put the user first and know that it's not about you. And I generally think that sometimes in this space, a lot of team members suffer with that because of how creative it is. These lenses dark, deeper vision. But if I can get a strong sense that the user's first for you every single time, that's super important to us.
Also helpful.
Fantastic.
I hope I asked the question. It takes it to heart, go work a portfolio. I think that sounds like the number one thing. Yeah, which comes to I think to the place and time now where university degrees mean a lot less, and it's more so like what can you actually deliver, what can you do, even more so in the age of AI, where like you're not just competing with having a better sounding resume, but more so can you compete with AI, right? Can you deliver something as simple as David said, can you throw a basketball in the hoop? Because I remember even from some of you guys, you tried experimenting hiring really highly qualified people from big name firms. And what you end up learning is that they were so used to cushy environments and they couldn't actually deliver, and they needed a management team of like 10 different people underneath them to, do the simplest of tasks. So I think if you're young out there and you're thinking that that's a disadvantage, it's actually an advantage, if you can be a humble go-getter and just create results.
There's one more thing I want to add to that as well. What I've seen from really successful employees who end up going and working at some of these top VR studios is that they build in public, right? So they're building and then they share what they built, right? So your core demographic, all of these founders, they're active. They're on LinkedIn, they're on Twitter, they're on YouTube, right? And oftentimes your content will get served in the right places. So as you're building things, make sure to share that so it's being put in public and people see what you're doing.
Awesome.
Agreed.
So with that, guys, I want to thank big thank you, big shout out to all of you for coming in today. Both first of all, our speakers for making the time and for building really incredible, games in VR, pushing the industry forward. Because if we were to remove you guys' games from the VR industry, the VR industry would be noticeably smaller, right? So you guys are actually making up some of the best IP in the space. And also, of course, shout out to all our attendees, LPs that joined today. We will be back with one more session of the Frontier Forum before we take a quick break for the summer. This will be June 25th. We'll be joined by Philip Vilaniev, the founder of Cookie 3, while he will dive into the intersection of crypto and AI. So with that, hope you guys had an amazing session today. We will get this up and running on YouTube shortly. And with that, have a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.